Good day to you. Welcome to another episode of Fighting Men of Rhodesia. My guest today is Corporal Con Heyns, a guy I've known a long, long time, both through, mainly through the church where I met him, and then he became my pastor at one point. But pastors have to go to war as well, so we'll be hearing something about his military escapades and perhaps a different facet where he's going to talk about what the wives went through as a consequence of continuous call-ups, which was very, very burdensome for them. So, Con, welcome to you. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
We've
Thank you.
ironed out all of the technical problems. I think
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we sure have. Yeah, a few technical problems. Yeah.
between last week and today, I think we've spent an hour and a half sorting it all out, but we're all okay. Anyway, we're both in England. Apologies to my English friends, but we call it Mud Island. I had one Englishman come back quite angry that I called England Mud Island. I said, relax, it's just an endearment. There's Australia's given a rather derogatory name, and so Mud Island's good enough. And
And absolutely. And like you and I are from dark Africa. I mean,
yeah, yeah. I'm in Bombazonki, Salisbury, and you're down in the southeast near London somewhere.
Haywards Heath is actually the place where I am. Yeah.
Hayward Heath, you're right.
Yeah.
For my viewers, you might have seen me in interviews coming out recently. The timeline is completely out. This was actually my first talk since I came back from hospital. So
Oh,
it's good to be back in the saddle. The other talks that you've seen were all done in March, April, and May of this year. Uh,
right.
but I'm much more handsome now, so we can press.
Yeah, me too. I get my winter plumage on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Con, give us an overview of where you grew up and what you did and how you ended up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was born in Chigutu, grew up there into my teenage years. And then my mom and dad moved down to the Incisa district down in Matabeleland, um, between Philabuzi and Fort Rixon, onto a cattle ranch, and that's where I sort of, in my later teen years and everything, that's where they were, and they were there, during the war and stuff like that too, so yeah, so that's really where part of what I grew up is there.
And were you one of the guys that liked Burundi bashing as a kid, or were you more intellectual and staying at home and reading things?
No, 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 no. Listen, I'm just a regular guy. I'm definitely not academic. I was very practical and practical type of guy. And in my younger years, my desire was to go cattle ranching because that's where I grew up, and of course I love the bush, and that is reflected in my whole army walk as well and decisions I made, army wise. But the whole war and everything changed the dynamics of that, and so having good parental sort of chats and everything else with friends and everything, I decided to become a mechanic. Felt that I needed a career behind me, and it would always be helpful if I went ranching or whatever. I had the qualifications and stuff, so I joined Zamoka, Mercedes guys, and did my apprenticeship and everything there. Um, yeah, towards during the war and after the war and all in between. But overall, I worked for them for about 16 years, I think it was. And yeah, so that whole background. But the war changed everything, and farms been taken away and everything else. There was no future for me ranching, so I just stayed as a mechanic, basically. Yeah.
And what was that company called before Zimbabwe? It became Samoka. It was something else, I think, seem to remember.
It used to be Norton Motor Company.
Norton Motor Company. Yeah,
It was started out in Norton, and then they moved the operation into Harare and called it Zimoco, Zimbabwe Motor Corporation.
right.
And I joined them, I think, the year after they'd moved. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's the background that way.
Well, I must admit, my fondest memories of coming around to your big double-story house was at Mabelran.
Marlborough.
Marlborough was this greasy head coming out from underneath a Mercedes Benz, which was in a million pieces, and
Well,
chickens
yeah,
cooking in the background.
those days I was yeah, because I'd started my own little business, and so yes, you probably often would have seen me there, and the yard full of Mercedes. But yeah, those were interesting years, and just making a living, trying to get on with life and stuff. And of course, by then, I I was already in the ministry and everything else, and just trying to tent make is the word we use, doing a little bit of extra on the side. And my dear wife Pam, we were doing a little chicken business. We were growing roses. We were then grew strawberries, and yeah, listen, we did everything else to survive and just make life easier in many different ways. So
Yeah, I remember feasting on the lovely fresh eggs that Pam gave us when we popped around. And bless her, Pam's passed away, as Con will share later on. Uh, but after, what school did you go to when you were out on that farm? Was it a boarding school?
no, no, I always from junior school to go to junior school, I went to Prince Edward.
Oh,
It was a family school as such. I think, if I remember correctly, and there must have been about, is it 8 or 9 of us that went through the school? Yeah, it was a sort of a family tradition thing. So I went to Prince Edward. So when mom and dad were down in the Philabuzi area, yeah, I used to just see them at school holidays. No long weekends or anything. It was too far. And but we got on well, and mom and dad were amazing for me, and we although we didn't see each other often, when we were together, it was quality time,
mm,
and yeah, we never had too many issues, and being so far in the bush, I couldn't get up to much nonsense anyway.
yeah.
And so, but yeah, it was a special time. Yeah.
And where were you at sort of what stage in your life were you when you got your quarter papers?
Well, when finishing school, so we're talking about what year did I finish? 68.
Wow.
And then went into the army 69.
Mm,
So January 69, I think it was. I had decided that before I start my apprenticeship to get the army training out of the way, and part of that was the whole thought about having been used to discipline, that it would find it easier going back into do the national service. I felt that was easier to do that, and that's what we did, and so 69, 9 months. Yeah, we did 9 months, and so yes, and I think that worked out well for me.
do you remember the intake number?
101,
Oh, crumbs.
B Company 101. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 152 way down the line. And tell us a bit about your training. Did you, like you said, you sort of like discipline and the outdoor life? Did you get on with it?
Well, the training, off to Llewellyn, I mean, the shock to the system, because nobody prepares you for the army, and just like the first day, everybody getting haircuts, and it was the day with, it was the day with, San Francisco and flowers in your hair and long
That's
hair and everything else, and you just watch these guys' hair pile up on the floor, and it was quite a transformation when you know people with long hair, and suddenly you turn around and they got nothing on their head. And but Llewellyn, yes, I mean, just the shock of being in a place like that. But I also had the advantage of being at boarding school. So you're used to the guys together, you're used to that banter and interaction and typical, male sort of what is the word I want? Backwards and forwards, the good guys, the bad guys, the rogues, the
thanks.
quiet
Yeah,
ones, and yeah, you get a whole mixture.
yeah.
So I think I slotted in there okay. And and back into the old Nissen huts, and and the discipline, you have to make your bed and this and that and the other. It it was, put it this way, it was like, why, you know why do I need to do this? Just get me into camouflage kit and send me out. I mean, as a youngster, I mean, I grew up shooting and hunting and all that kind of stuff. My bushcraft and stuff was, yeah, I wouldn't say top of the range. I wasn't in line with the guys that used to train us for survival and everything else. No, but there was enough to get around, and I thought that's all I need, man. I just give me a gun and let me go. So Llewellyn training, yeah, reminders of the anything that you did, even thought of doing wrong. Old Sergeant Major used to jump on you. Oh, I don't know, mentioning names, but old Solly Joubert, oh my goodness, yeah, that was a shock, where everything just seemed so unreasonable, and just the commands and demands and like what? And of course, with my sense of humor background and stuff, I used to giggle, and that meant a few bunny hops around the airfield. You know, it was just part of the discipline, pulling you together, um, pulling the other guys with you. Now that was a big thing. You see, is like just because you won the obstacle race, you didn't actually win until your teammate crossed the line,
Mm.
and that whole bonding, comradeship that carries you right through the whole army experience. That the guy that you got to look after is the guy that's watching your back.
Yeah.
He watches your back, you watch his. I mean, it that was installed and drilled in us, and it
Mm.
paid handsomely. That all those basic um, training a team, a troop, training these guys together, and you look upon them not just as a mate, you look upon him as an essential part of who you are
Mm.
and your future. Yeah. So I think it was brilliant training and stuff that they went through.
Yeah, I think the whole ethos behind it was to break down the individuality and
Yeah,
turn people
absolutely.
into team players, and that's certainly I experienced that as well.
Yeah.
Um, so where did you go once you finished your basics? I mean, if you
We were sent up to Kariba. Yay. Um, and I was really pleased because, of course, I just love Kariba. I love the Zambezi Valley. I mean, you know, and so we were sent up to Kariba, stayed up at Kariba Heights in the flats up in Kariba Heights, and fascinating that soon after that is when I met my wife Pam in the whole army thing to find out her dad was the building manager, the contract manager that built Kariba
ah,
with Richard Costain and just the connections and but yes, Kariba Heights. Oh my goodness, many excursions to Kariba Heights, to the bar or to Breezes or to yeah, some of the other places. Caribbean Bay was then already working. Have a quick visit to the casino and just cause havoc. But it was an outlet. But yes, I enjoyed Kariba. We went out, of course, to guard the wall,
and
basically.
that must
Uh,
have been with too in depth, Con.
Um, yes, it was too in depth, yeah.
Mm.
And to guard the wall, to guard the power station transformer units, and also the tunnels that lead to the generators to the where the tail races are. And so, welcome to guard duty. Oh my goodness, I did not enjoy guard duty. That was the most boring thing ever. But being in Kariba, they allowed us to go and fish below the dam wall, you know, besides anywhere else we wanted to. And we when I was there in 69, did I say 69?
Yeah.
69, the sluice gates were opened and
Wow.
they opened up to three, I think it was.
Mm.
And that was spectacular just to be there and walking in the spray of those things and the sound, the noise, you know, oh
Mm.
my goodness, you know, and everything's shaking, everything's vibrating.
Oh, it's
It always
unbelievable.
fascinated me that the wall didn't break with all the
Unbelievable.
vibrations.
I went just before I left Zimbabwe in 2002. They opened the gates for the first time in, I don't know, 30 years. And they tested one. And there was a guy on there looking at it, measuring something, I don't know. And he looked like an ant compared with this big box of water coming out.
Uh,
Slowly but surely, the second one opened, and then the third one. And I tell you, like you say, it's like being in an earthquake with that water
oh,
coming out. Unbelievable.
well,
And
well,
it had dug out a huge hole at the foot of the
oh
wall.
my goodness, yeah. How deep was that hole there? Because they've just
Yeah,
done it now, isn't it? Was
yeah.
it something like 80 meters or something deep
Oh,
or
I
something?
probably think more. And I used to be
I can't remember.
fascinated by the big fat crocodiles lurking around in there as well.
Oh my goodness. I had a family member who used to do the scuba diving down there to do the inspections. He says there were vundu down there that could swallow a 10-year-old child, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I heard that from a friend,
Massive things, yeah.
Alan.
But
Was
yes, so Kariba was fascinating and you know that part of the guard duties and stuff. But we went out on patrols as well,
mm,
and of course when you start talking about wildlife, I mean we going back, you know, 69. I mean there was wildlife. You wouldn't believe how much wildlife was around, and of course that suited me 100%. Yeah,
mm.
so it was
But
good.
it was a day where you caught more ticks than terrorists. There wasn't much going on in that area.
Absolutely. I mean, 69, I mean, there was already, incursions and there was activity and some of the guys that were involved in contacts and stuff used to come and talk to us and their experiences and everything else. And I remember the guy that impressed me with just how focused he was and determined he was, and so reliant and confident of the training and everything they had was a guy called Mike Carter, I think his name was. And wow, I mean, it in one way excited you as a person that with the right training, with the right exposure and stuff, you can have the confidence to be able to, yeah, defend yourself and everybody else and make an impact,
Mm.
So, yeah, very encouraging when these guys come back and say, well, this is what happened. This is the situation. In those days, of course, a lot of the contacts, the guys, the insurgents the terrorists used to just run away.
Mm.
But in the later years, of course, they used to stand and fight. So that was very different. Yeah. So in a way, it was a very easy ride initially, because they were still trying to fathom out how they can infiltrate the country and infect it. Yeah. So
Which indeed they did. And in fact, that's where the war started, not far from Kariba, in one of the towns leading to Kariba on the main road, a place called Sonoya. I think that was the first battle of the war.
yeah, the Odendals, they were sort of Chiguti Chinoy area, yes, to Sonoya or Chinoy there.
Mm.
They were one of the first ones killed, and so the reality starts hitting you that this is real. This is real. This is not cadets at school. The
Did
days
you,
we used to do cadets at school. Yeah.
did you ever patrol in the Monopools area, or was that too far east?
Well, to give you a background of that, yeah, I mean, there's lots of stories and things I could tell, but our area extended from Tashinga to the Nyakasanga Gate, before you go into Monopools.
Right.
So we did that whole Kariba, um, Matusadona area down past to, for instance, Rukomachi, you know, Rukomachi onto Nyakasanga. So that whole area was ours that we did. But that was more later on, when we were stationed at Makuti. So in my national service, it was more restricted around the Kariba Dam area and up to the banana farm and around that sort of area, because there wasn't a huge amount of activity going on.
Mm.
But we were a presence, if you like, and we were learning as we were going along. And some of the guys out of the cities, I mean, it was bushcraft. They'd never been in the bush before. So for us that grew up in the bush, it was like, no, this is like holiday, this is like a weekend camp. Um, but so yeah, so we were restricted with two in around Kariba area, and later on, I did a lot of call-ups from Makuti. Yeah.
That was a pretty rough area geographically. I mean, if you walk too far without your eyes open, you'd fall off something for sure, or get swallowed by something, or you'd
And
have to become a Welshman with one leg longer than the other, walking around all the hills.
yeah, so being down there in Kariba, a few nice sort of animal encounters, walking into the back of elephant and just see this big gray backside and then they just disappear. Phew, and they're gone.
They are amazing.
Fascinating. But we had encounters with all kinds. The only animal that I never encountered was the rhino. There
Hmm.
were rhinos in those days. We never encountered rhinos, but you had the lions, you had hyenas, you had the wild dogs, you had plus all the game, the plains game, um, the general sort of impala kind of kudus and stuff like that. So it was fascinating being down there, and we loved it. Absolutely.
And
Well, I loved it. I enjoyed that part of it.
the bird life, and what I loved lying in the bush at night. Well, obviously I was a city dweller, so for me to go out into the bush and hear wild dogs and hyenas howling was just so made the hair stand up on the back of my neck.
I
Because
think I
you
think
saw,
it was for me. It was
yeah,
trying to identify noises that you hear because it was knowledgeable thing.
Mm,
You increase your knowledge about what's going on around you and the animal noises, especially when you're lying at night and you don't know what this funny little scurrying noise is or footsteps or whatever, or this silhouette, and you think, what the heck is that? It could be anything. Because once you dress up with all your gear and backpack on, your whole silhouette changes.
mm.
And but for me, I just loved the Africa Orchestra.
Yeah.
Every little creature and cricket and the night noises was beautiful. And yeah, besides the mosquitoes, that was the not
Uh,
very.
for me, as a city dweller, when I first heard wild dogs yapping and yelping, it made me think of the cowboy and Indian movies. Is that an Indian out there going whoop 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 whoop, whoop? And it enhances that sort of what's tenseness a little bit because you're
Yeah.
looking for tears. You don't know if you're going to have an ambush or instigate an ambush, and you've got the whelping going on out there. It certainly heightens your awareness.
Yeah, and of course you use them to your advantage in later years. Those early years it was just bush, basically bush noises. But in the later years, you were reliant on the birds flying, or the animals moving, or suddenly running away. You were aware that something's going on,
Absolutely.
um, and so yes, it was very what is it, close to my heart, to the whole nature and linking it in, because on the ranch, of course, we were Dad was working on a 40,000 acre ranch. I mean, so the thing was like a playground to me as a teenager, hunting, fishing, doing just the open air. But I loved the contrast of Kariba and the valley was so different to everything else.
Mm,
And
mm,
and nothing like sitting under a baobab tree and
beautiful.
letting your mind wander. How old is this tree? How long has it been here? Well, who else has sat under this tree? And your imagination runs away with you in those kind of times. But that's what the bush does to you. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, you get that, like you say, sitting next to baobab, whether it's night or day, the sense of time, the timelessness of Africa. It's
Yeah.
just you can't define time there, and
No,
I can understand why the indigenous people, they don't unless they become a little bit more modernized and had watches and radios and stuff. They probably couldn't tell you what day it is. It's just timeless. It's just
absolutely.
it's going on forever.
Absolutely. I mean, we did a sort of the crocodile Dundee thing where you look up at the sun and say, "Oh, it's 10 past 2," and the guy said, "How do you know that?" You say, "Well, we bush people." Meanwhile, you've just glanced at your watch. So, but it was just life out there, and of course, for me, looking for wild fruit or anything what's edible, or um, that potato that grows under the ground. The one
Yeah.
what they in Shona, what they call it, madumbi or something, and it's got a little dry stick sticking out of the ground, and you dig it, and there's this huge big potato, purpley potato, and you just naturally lean that way. When you're there, you
Mm,
you become aware of your surroundings,
mm,
and um, and it's like the guys from town. The first couple of days in the bush, they can't see anything
yeah.
because they're looking at the object instead of through the object.
Mm,
And you learn that bushcraft so quickly that don't look at the tree, look through the tree, look through beyond that, because that's where the danger lies. Not what
yeah.
sometimes what you can see is what you can't see.
Mm,
And that kind of bushcraft was something that we grew up with naturally, but you saw the guys from town that were blind. They
mm,
were bush blind,
mm.
and that was fascinating to be able to experience that. And these guys seeing that and learning it and enjoying it, yeah, while you're there, might as well enjoy it while you're there, as best as you can.
And also, you very quickly learn how smells carry as well. I mean, you can't use toothpaste in the bush
No,
because a guy 50, 100 yards away will smell that.
oh my goodness,
And
absolutely. And the guys got used to 5 days without any washing or something, or even longer. And the guys we captured, the tours we captured, would say we could smell you, and so we couldn't understand it. We hadn't had a bath for 5 days. How can he smell us? But they said we smelt like sour milk
Yes, yes.
because of our very dairy-based diet.
Yeah.
They could smell the
Yeah.
sour milk on us, and that's incredible. It's just amazing. Yeah.
And they smelt like onions.
Oh, garlic, yeah. Well,
So
yes.
it would have made an interesting soup, eh? Garlic and onions and a bit of sour milk.
Can you imagine? Yeah. Make a chef turn his head for sure. Yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Did you ever go as far west as Boomy Hills and that area?
Yes. Yeah. So we're talking about my initial training was just around the Kariba, and then when after that was finished, going to five in-depth or fifth bat, eh? Yeah,
With
going
that,
to fifth bat. Um, and behold, we were sent to Makuti. So you can imagine my joy in a way going to Makuti. I'm going to Makuti. I mean, it's nice and cool up at Makuti. It's not so hot as the valley, and the contrast between those Matusadona mountains and you walking in places that you know no human foot has ever walked in this place before,
yeah.
and the scenery and the animals, the scenery, the just that experience, and then you get to the end of the mountain, you look down in this flat valley, and you go down in there, and then it's a completely different change of vegetation and everything else. But no, we were sent to Makuti, and our area Makuti, yes. Then eventually the area was from Nyakasanga Gate, from the Nyakasanga Gate to Tashinga, and that was a huge area. Think of a company of men, what 30 something. I mean, it was like,
Yeah.
well, we were covering huge area. Um, but our task was to catch the cross-border guys going backwards and forwards across the border, picking up spoor,
Mm.
following up on spoor, many ambushes, many OPs, watching, sitting on top of a hill with the binoculars and watching what's going on, trying to just catch movement. And what is so incredible in that environment is learning to catch any movement, and you train your eye to catch movement, and that's where you see the game and the activity and just a bird suddenly flying, and you immediately your eye is onto that
Mm.
because you get so used to trying to well, be a good soldier, I suppose, and do your job. Um, but it was tough doing that whole area.
Mm. In fact,
Very,
from
very isolated, and you felt
yeah.
very alone
Mm.
when you're in your when leading a stick.
Mm.
But there's four of you in the stick, and you're walking along, and any moment now you can run into 20, 30, 40 group of people that are not friendly. And
Mm.
so you were very much aware how lonely it could be.
And that area from Makuti right through Matusadona, the Mavuridonas, all of that, you could literally have had 20,000 people in there.
Oh,
You'd never find them.
in those little gullies and
Mm.
little rocky outcrops, you could hide hundreds of people there, and you didn't even know they existed.
Mm.
So our patrolling was important because it created a presence.
Mm. Mm.
So you create the presence. The locals that are there is more up towards Makuti. But from there onwards, if you ran into anybody, he's not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
It's all national park. So,
Mm.
um, and the national park service guys and the rangers and stuff, well, they were easy to identify. And so if you saw movement of people walking around and they didn't look like a ranger, you knew you would be onto a group of people, entry or exiting into Zambia.
Did you ever have the enjoyment of boat patrols on Kariba? They were fantastic.
No, no, I never did boat patrols. I think we were dropped once by boat for a very quick ambush thing. The boat patrol, I think, had picked up some movement from Zambia. They were trying to use boats to come across to infiltrate, um, and they put us on a ambush one night. And so it was fascinating riding a boat at night, and you see nothing. It's pitch black, and the pilot of the boat knew exactly where he's going, but it's like, oh my goodness, any moment now you can hit a tree stump or anything. Um, but that's only patrol once. I only do one of those, but no boat patrols.
I think the advantage we had, the Rhodesian army in summer, or when it was dry rather than winter, is that the tours would start navigating towards river lines, to get water,
Yeah,
uh, to have sustenance as they moved inland. And that cut out huge chunks of land that you didn't really have to look at as intently. Uh,
no,
I
no,
found
that's right.
most of the encounters we had were in river lines, and
Well, for us, it was, they were so fit. These guys were so super fit, and probably very high on dacha, and they would cross the river, and by daylight, they're sitting up in the Koroi area. I mean, what is that? 50, 60 Ks. I mean,
mm,
they through that terrain. I mean,
mm,
we're
mm,
lucky if we did 10 Ks a day. They
mm,
could do that overnight because they ran it, basically. They would
mm,
run it. So if you picked up spoor, um, you think, well, if I don't pick it up first thing in the morning, they were already sitting up in the mountains, man.
mhm,
But it, like I said, it was the presence. We were there. They knew we were there. They had their observers, of course, and informants to, what were they called, majibas or whatever. They had
oh,
people that would observe your movements and what's going on. So they knew where you were, but it was still a presence. And of course their safety was in the fact that they could get into the communal lands, on the fly fence, going up into Koroi onto the fly fence, because we
mhm,
we we were south north of the fly fence, so we would patrol up to the fly fence and down into Kariba, but up from that, I don't know who else were doing that from Chinoy or Koroi or something. I can't remember now. But yeah, so it was a very fleeting chance of to run into somebody, and I experienced that once.
mhm,
Um, we had a fleeting contact, probably about, say, 300 meters or so, and we were walking along a side of a sort of side of a little hill, following a game path. You follow the game path because it's so much easier, and suddenly all the leaves and the twigs were falling on us, and then we heard the report. We could hear the rifle fire, and we of course hit the ground, and then we realized these guys had just given us a squirt, you know um because they were so far away, and
mhm.
they were exiting because we went and picked up the spore. They were exiting, so they knew by the time we got to where they were probably paddling across the Zambezi. um but that was the only fleeting contact that I had,
Mm.
uh, with a I can't remember even how many there were, probably about 20 or so.
Mm.
But it was only a fleeting contact, and they were happy to give us a squirt and run, knowing that the choppers or fire force or anybody would not be able to get there on time to interfere with what they were doing. So that,
This actually resulted in quite a unique tactic in the Rhodesian military. I don't know if you've read the book Wings of Destruction. It's a very good book. Um, the author's name is on the tip of my tongue, but he came up with a rather novel idea of tracking the tours from aircraft,
yeah,
u- using little push-pull aircraft, whatever they were,
the links.
links, or even a smaller
Oh,
aircraft.
they used the little Cessnas and stuff, the fixed wings, little ones. Yeah,
Yeah, and he noticed that tracks, especially through grass, were actually quite easy to pick up.
yeah.
It enabled the guys who were heliborne to leapfrog, to cut.
Leapfrog.
And then because these tours were moving at such a remarkable speed, you could cut out 10 Ks, you could pick them up 10 Ks later,
Yes.
whatever. And
Yeah.
that resulted in a lot of success. And it also revealed where a lot of their temporary base camps were, because there were tracks coming into this one area, like in a clumpy of trees near a river.
Yeah. Fascinating.
And
But
it
that's
worked well.
bushcraft. You see,
Yeah.
that's bushcraft, Tony. That's
Mm,
just bushcraft, observing what, and being aware. Yeah. And I remember us being picked up, and you pick up and you get dropped, and you get picked up and you get dropped, and as they trying to follow the thing. But for us in the territorial army, you see, we didn't have a lot of direct contact with these guys. I mean,
no.
that's why I always honor our regular soldiers that did
Mm,
absolutely amazing. RLI, SAS, I mean,
mm.
RAR,
Oh, yeah.
these guys were, they were the front line. They took the brunt of all this stuff. I
Mm.
was only a temporary soldier, and so,
Yeah,
you know,
there's other units that did do very well. I mean, the Black Boots did well.
oh, absolutely.
And I tell you, I've done 3 interviews now with guys who were in INTEF, and uh, I am embarrassed enough to admit that I didn't think I would get a story out of them, but I was absolutely fascinated at how those guys kept the ground and still maintained the administrative roles
Yeah,
of internal affairs,
yeah.
dipping cattle. I didn't realize that the cattle in the rural areas were very much part of the export sending meat overseas, which we needed for foreign currency.
Well, yes, but you see, my family being in the ranching world, we used to go to the rural areas and buy that cattle,
Right.
buy it from the rural folk, feed them up, and send them to cold storage.
Mm,
That was
mm.
part of the business.
Yeah.
And but they played a big part in that. But yes, these you see, I think that it was good we didn't know everything that was going on because
Yeah.
they said that the walls has ears. Um, you were not aware of all the little details of the stuff going on because it was a security risk.
Yeah.
So we had to be content to be just contained in what we were doing rather than trying to be clever and know everything that's going on around you. I think just as well we didn't know.
So at some point, well, obviously being territorial, you in and out of the army, you in and out of the army. I think it went from 4 2 weeks to 6 weeks. At
Yeah, I was, yeah.
at what point in those call-ups did you meet Pam and get married?
Well, we got, yes, I met Pam, of course, after I'd finished my initial training. So I met her after that at Polytech doing my training, doing the technical classroom training type of stuff. And
Right.
that's when I met her. And because the war was on, it delayed us getting married. I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to, because I'd lost quite a few friends and saw the pain of their wives and the families, how they affected, and I think that delayed me a little bit of us getting married. But once I was fully qualified, then of course my income was better. And if I went into the army, the company paid me, the army paid me. I mean, you didn't lose financially. It was an amazing system where you're not losing out at all. And the family back home was financially secure. But it was that the pressure of 6 weeks in and 6 weeks out. Now that I did for 5 years.
Mm,
Now that put on pressure.
mm,
Um, that changed our lives. Yes, we got married, and I think looking back now, when my first daughter was born, when Lisa was born, she was Down syndrome, and the diagnosis was because of our tension in the war, the anxiety caused in the war.
mm,
Not only too much for me, but for Pam at home.
mm,
Pam was at home holding the fort, paying the bills, having to do everything that she does with not hearing from me, having
mm,
having no contact with me whatsoever. That kind of pressure, they said that is a strong possibility that could have affected the pregnancy because
mm.
we don't have any Down syndrome in our family at all, both sides. There's no indication of it at all.
Yeah.
And they think that could have affected the whole pregnancy and everything
Yeah.
in that
Definitely.
time. We're 6 weeks in, 6 weeks out. I mean, as a initial pregnancy, and then as time goes on, it's like you're off again. I think was an effect. But so we got married in 60. We got married in 60. Gee, I'm trying to remember when we got married. We got married in 64, and Lisa was born in 67. Yeah. So it was in that time where the war was starting to escalate and things started happening. But only later on did we come to the 6 weeks in, 6 weeks out, but already it was an effect that it had on the family and everything else. And so that was tough.
The stress on the woman was very high, and I think it led to a number of divorces and a number of people just leaving the country.
Yeah,
Also, it was just that, and as the war got more and more into the cities, it was us who were starting to worry. You
yeah,
know,
that's right.
church has been blown up in town, and that's
Yeah.
happened, and the oil tanks have gone up. Are my wives and kids going to get ambushed or killed? So we started to carry the warrior as well.
And you're sitting in the bush and you're worried about your family. You think about your family. There's nothing you can do.
Mm,
You're helpless in a way that way.
mm,
But we were defending the nation, protecting the cities
mm,
and our families in the cities. So we had to go out to form a barrier. I asked Pam one day and I said, what is the biggest impact you saw on my life, how the army thing and everything affected me? She said you had a dual personality. So when you were home, you were the loving husband, father, and and a good mechanic and friendly with everybody, whatever. The next day you put your army uniform on, and it's like a sheet comes down on you, and you change completely.
mm,
Your whole I suppose your whole character, your whole thinking, they could see it. It
mm,
just changed dramatically as soon as you went in again. So when you got that 6 weeks in, 6 weeks out, I mean, you had a character change every time you went out, and depending where you were going as well. Because yes, Makuti was mild, but other times we were in other places that were pretty hairy.
mm.
Um, and the most hairy area I think that we went to was down in Gonarazode, Mabalauta.
Oh, Russian front, Mabalahuta
Yeah,
area.
and doing patrols in Boli, where the Lord must have decided that's where all the rocks must go, all the round rocks. And but Mabalahuta, yes, we spent quite a time down in Mabalahuta.
There were areas there that were liberated. Con, I tell you,
Oh,
I came across parade squares with flag poles, and the guys had dug through sandstone 20 feet deep to find this beautiful sweet water.
yeah,
They had straw bashes with roofs on, and I thought, flip, man, this is Zimbabwe. It's not
yeah,
Rhodesia anymore.
yeah. They got established there, and I can't remember how many, if you like, tours of duty we did down there.
Mm,
But yeah, we were landmines. We were in trouble there as just an ordinary territorial troopy. We were in trouble down there. So they then moved us back to Makuti, and the RAR moved in there full time. So because we couldn't cope, there was great concerns for us and
mm.
our ability to be able to deal with a larger group of people and probably more aggressive too, I suppose, in that sense. Yeah, but I know we were moved out from there.
Yeah, I know with us territorial guys, we weren't necessarily always with the same guy from the previous call up.
No,
And
no,
so you're getting to know guys, or you don't know how a guy's going to act in a contact. You don't know whether he understands your principles of left flanking, right flanking,
no.
or run. You just don't know what. And
and
it's
and for them too, trusting me as a corporal
yeah,
section
yeah,
leader. Each one of us had our own style and abilities and stuff like that, and for them to trust you too, so that if you say to him, "Listen, I want you to move there," and the guy says, "I don't want to,"
mm,
uh, he had to understand your line of thinking and stuff like that. Um, so there was a few people that were regular, but generally, yes, they were chopping and changing. And as the years went on, there was more chopping and changing as people left
absolutely.
the country and moved on and did
Yeah,
all sorts of things like that. Yeah,
yeah. I went from 25 white guys in a company 2RR to three white guys and 18 or 20 black guys.
yeah,
And it was just a totally different dynamic and way of
all the,
thinking. And I mean,
yeah,
they were often excellent soldiers, but I was a bit worried about how to communicate with them. I never really had a chance to settle them in at the beginning of a call up, practice our language skills. What do we do in an ambush? We
you had
didn't,
to just get out. You had to
it
get
was
out there. And
straight out in the bush, and it was frightening, man.
and,
Frightening.
and and the sad thing was one mistake, could cost a
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
And that was difficult to deal with and stuff
Mm,
like that. And there very few occasions that in the days that I'm trying to remember where we were. I think we were by then in Chinoy, I think at one time, and we were fire force, and that was frightening to be. When that alarm goes and you got to leap into the chopper and off you go, and you got no idea where you're going. And fortunately, I only once did they take me straight into a contact, and that was to help the guys on the ground because they'd been injured, they'd been wounded, and we went in there to help extract them and create create some support and stuff like that. And that's frightening. Eh? Your pump is going, I tell you. And when the chopper pilot said, "I'm dropping you here," and you said, and you're still trying to find which map, are you on the same map as he's got, and
Yeah.
he just points his finger on the map, and you've got to remember where that is. Yeah, that's quite frightening, but
And I remember banking left on the choppers, and I don't know if it was standard, but the one we were in, even though it was a G car, had a machine gun, and banking left, and the gun is firing away, and you're looking down the barrel from behind him, and you can't see what the hell he's shooting at.
you can't see a thing.
No.
And that time in the chopper where you're sitting with no doors on, and the guy banks it,
Yeah.
and you turn your head and you're looking at directly at the top of your trees, and you think, "Oh my goodness, how does this work?"
Yeah.
And but those I think the South African pilots, when they first came in to help us and stuff, that was a new experience. But our guys, I mean, I take my hat off to our
Oh
guys.
yeah.
They were just absolutely incredible. Our Air Force guys, and of course I went to school with some of them, and they did tremendous work. And for me as a section leader walking around in the middle of the bush, to hear that chopper, oh my goodness, yeah, your whole confidence builds up, that there's somebody in the air, or even the lynx,
Yeah.
when you can hear the lynx going along, and you think, yeah, yeah, I've got support up, yeah. So,
Yeah, they were wonderful pilots. I was CASEVAC in Mozambique, and it's just nice to have that reassurance when you hear those blades beating, and the guy talking him on to your target, and
yeah,
then away you go. You've got a doctor on board,
everything's there.
all jacked up. That magic hour that keeps a person alive.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had an accident. We moved in with the vehicle at night, and I instead of getting off the back of the vehicle, I just got off the side, and I went straight on top of a tree stump that'd been cut. You know how they
Oh,
cut the
yeah.
trees at that sort of level, and I went and sat straight on it.
Hey, no.
And they had to casevac me to Kariba with the helicopters and stuff,
Yeah.
and you realize the whole machinery of the whole army unit as a
Yeah.
whole, what has to be in place for anything that happens. And so I was I was casevaced out of that, and so that was special. But it brings to memory that you're on patrol and the chopper comes to pick you up, and half an hour you're sitting in base camp with a cold beer, and you think, this is
Uh,
not real, man.
no.
You know?
Yeah.
From bush to base camp in half an hour, and you're sitting with a cold beer. It's like, no, man, this is not real.
I think the efficiency of the army was quite impressive. Even the recovery of vehicles that have been blown up, they weren't left in the bush for weeks. They were gone within 2 days.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, incredible. I mean, in the later part of my army, of course, I hit a landmine.
Yeah.
And up in sort of the Koroi on the fly fence area there of Koroi. I can't remember what that tribal trust land was called there. Christmas Eve, 1977.
Oh, nice one.
Three of our vehicles have gone to do a recovery of guys that have been on ambushes or whatever they were. I was in the leading truck, and we hit the landmine, and it was boosted,
Oh,
and it was a brand new crocodile. I think it was called the crocodile, the
yeah.
Isuzu ones.
Yes, yes.
I think it was
Crocodile
called the crocodile.
with the sloping armor.
Yeah, and yes, with a sloping armor, but because the vehicle was so heavy, I think it weighed about 13 tons or something, they had to put double wheels at the back.
That's right.
And of course, that was not very nice when you come to landmines, because it decreased your surface area. So we hit that landmine. Oh my goodness! Now that changed my whole life in the army and everything.
Mm.
But we were the front vehicle. The second vehicle was behind us, and the third vehicle also hit a mine. All in the same trip, within 5 minutes of one another.
That happened to me. I was on a Unimog, and I was third in queue, and we got them on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that I mean, you never forget that explosion. And I think today I suffer from tinnitus because of that explosion, because
Me
I was
too.
deaf.
Yeah.
for days. I couldn't hear a thing.
I lost my income
So I must
completely.
have had eardrum damage and
Yeah.
inner ear damage, and but yes, that was quite something. That was where
Was that at
I
night?
tell the story that I can't remember how many of us were on the vehicle because we were on our way to collect the guys. So there may have been 4 or 5 of us on the vehicle, I think, and I was the only one that climbed off the vehicle by myself.
Jeez.
Everybody else had to be helped, and those were we were still wearing straps in those days,
Wow. Yeah.
seat belts and everything. It was the days where they
Yeah.
really realized that we had to have seat belts when you hit landmines because
Absolutely.
you cause more damage flying through the air
Yeah.
or the vehicle falling on you or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember that, and that sort of sticks in my mind. And sometimes when I'm tired or I'm ill or under stress, I have nightmares about that.
Yeah. And
Amazing, isn't it?
was that at night or during the day?
Now during the day, sort of late afternoon. Yeah.
And it, yeah, it just that. And was it part of an ambush as well, or somebody had just tried their luck?
I was expecting the ambush.
Yeah.
I was expecting to hear being ambushed, but we weren't ambushed, fortunately. So we could get off the vehicle and do the normal debus left, right, or whatever. I was mentis enough to be able to shout that, but I don't think the guys would have heard because I couldn't even
Yeah.
hear myself.
No.
Um,
Oh,
you go through those natural automatic reactions to things like that because it's part of our training.
that's it. It's
And that's
amazing
where you
how.
see how important the training is, the
Yeah.
preparation
It's
for.
amazing how it kicks in. Actually.
Yeah.
Um. I even had the presence of mind in one of my other minds to tell the guys to get off the back and walk in the tracks because they had AP mines on the side somewhere.
Oh, yeah, that's it. You see, yeah.
You have to, and that's just from training, and doing dozens of debusses and ambushes,
Yeah.
and it kicks in again. So that boosted mine, obviously, it's got a double wheel, but the for our foreign viewers, we put water in our tires,
That's right.
and then above the wheels, we had metal.
Yeah.
At
It's
the
where the valve was. You took the
steel.
valve out and you put
Yeah,
water until the water ran out of the valve,
yeah.
so that you had that like probably maybe not as much as 30% of air in it. The rest was water, yeah, just to be able to contain that blast, which
It was
made the vehicles interesting to drive when you got those wheel
re
walls.
remarkably efficient for absorption of shock there.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
And then above that, you'd have the steel armor at the back going
Um, well,
and
as you can see from the vehicles on the wall here, you can see there's some of
yeah,
those the
that's right.
ornaments.
The you'd have just for our foreign views above that we put conveyor belting from mines, which was an inch thick or more.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant for stopping shrapnel.
Yeah, that's it.
Then there would be a layer of sandbags,
Sandbags.
and then
That's what made the vehicle so heavy. But I remember the crocodile wearing about that on an Isuzu chassis, I think it was, weighing 13 tons. I mean, that was heavy, before you even put anything in it.
yeah,
But it was to protect us because that was the whole idea, to protect for any damage and stuff. So, but anyway, so yeah, so from that landmine, of course, if I can continue with that, is that it changed my whole army
mm,
because I went back on I was on that. I was on the changeover was after Christmas, after Boxing Day, and then the next guys would take over for New Year, so you could get home to your families type of thing. And I went back to work, and I must have been at work maybe a week or so, and my boss called me and said to me, "Just do me a favor." I said, "Well, yeah, what's that?" He said, "Stand up against that wall. Stand up straight against the wall." And he said, "Mate, you're not straight. You're leaning over to one side."
mm,
And then I realized I had back damage.
mm,
And from that, yes, I had my vertebrae and my discs had popped out. And it changed my army because I then couldn't go back to normal patrolling. Um, and which I loved. I loved it. I loved the bush, man. I used to volunteer for days in the bush. Instead of going out on a 4-day patrol, I said, no, man, I want to go a week.
mm,
And but that changed my whole army career thing because um, then they wanted to put me into workshops once I don't know, it took me maybe was it 6 months or something before I felt I could do something. But they had degraded me, so I couldn't go into the bush and everything. So they gave me a choice: either go into because I worked for Mercedes to work in the workshops at KG6, or I could go out as LAD, light A detachment. And I said, no, I'll definitely do that. So I still used to go out with the troops. And by then we changed to Mercedes. So being a Mercedes mechanic, they said, well, there's your 2.5, mate. So you can drive the officers and you've got that vehicle to help and repair and do everything else on it. And so my army experience thereafter was being LAD, being in base camps. But then I had to do radio duties and things like that instead of going out, or I could drive people out and drop and deploy them. But my whole army thing changed around then.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, from the good old 2.5, which I loved. I love that thing. I wish I could own one now. But
Well, for our,
thinking back on the vehicles, the old good old RL, for instance.
oh yeah,
Oh, I mean, listen, that's a workhorse, man.
the Bedford.
Yeah, the old Bedford, the RL, yeah, and the old Bedford that in four-wheel drive, second gear, half throttle, you could go anywhere with that thing. Then, I mean, that thing would drive over trees and stuff. And then, of course, they came out with the RM with a flat nose, completely flat nose, and they used to overheat like you wouldn't believe, you see. And then remember, they went through a whole stage where they mounted the radiators outside the vehicle in front to try and get as much air onto those radiators. Because up in those hills, Makuti Hills, Kariba Hills, we left many on the side of the road,
Mm,
blown head gaskets and everything else because of the heat.
mm.
It couldn't cope with the heat. But once we switched to Mercedes, to the 4.5s and stuff like that, I was in my element, and the 2.5s and stuff like that. So I did play, I think, a good role in what I did, being mechanic
Yeah, very
on the
important
group
role.
and stuff like that. But of course, with the vehicles being new, I didn't do much mechanical work. It
But for our foreign viewers, the vehicles on the wall behind you is
Yes, I'm not sure you can see all of them. Can you see
I
some
see
of them?
two of them. I can see the top one is what we call the crocodile. I think
Yeah,
let me get my glasses on.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the crocodile. It's got the armor halfway up.
yeah,
The one in the middle is a Mercedes-Benz 2.5. It's called a 2.5 because it's a 2.5 tonner.
yeah.
And below that is the ubiquitous 4.5, which is 4.5 ton. That was the main troop carrier, and it had
Troop carrier, and they use it for stores and stuff like that. Yeah,
the roll bars there in case it got blown over in a landmine, and
yeah,
you'd
yeah.
end up hanging upside down in your seatbelts.
So those remind me of the army often. You see, I'm sitting here in my lounge, and those are on my wall.
And above your right shoulder is very typical African bush that we would patrol in.
Yeah,
That would be up in the Yanga area, I should imagine.
Nyanga, yeah,
And the
yeah.
trees there, the leaves go red before they go green,
That's
and
it.
it's absolutely stunningly beautiful.
The Masasas are beautiful.
And a typical dusty road that you go down and hit a mine on.
That's
I'm surprised,
wonderful.
Con, with the cost of fixing a truck. I'm surprised we weren't all given Pookies, the mine detection vehicles.
Well, we had one at Makuti
Mhm.
that used to, because the ration runs on the week came to Makuti, and we had to take the rations to Rukomichi. There was the colored group. What were they? RHUs, or whatever they call it?
Or DU.
RD or something.
Yeah,
RDU was it?
yeah, yeah,
And we used to have to supply them with food, and also take the food to Kariba.
yeah,
So we became a supply point. Now, so the guys down at Rukomichi, we used to go down with a vehicle there, and of course that dirt road for tours crossing over from Zambia, they used to, I'm not carrying this mine up the mountain. They just put it in that road.
yeah,
We lost so many vehicles on that road. It was ridiculous.
yeah,
So we eventually got those guys on whichever day there was resupply. They would get up early in the morning and prod with prodders and do mine detection with the vehicle by on foot prodding. Remember those old wire things? Prod the roll roads
yeah,
till they got to where the flight control was at the bottom of the scarpin,
yeah.
and then drive on to up to us, collect their food, and then do the same going back again. Now,
Amazing.
for us supplying Kariba, well, with a bit of manipulation, we used to make sure that our supply run to Kariba would be late afternoon. So we couldn't return at the 6 o'clock curfew.
Oh,
We would have to, unfortunately, stay overnight.
Oh, terrible. Just at the casinos, I've got good parking area.
So we had to entertain ourselves and go to the pubs and the casino and everything else. And yeah, it was very interesting times. Those are, and it was naughty in one way, but really, um, no incidents happened that would have jeopardized anything because just what we were given as a task
Yeah.
wasn't direct, direct conflict war, if you like, contacts and stuff like that.
You were lucky to be able to go in the casinos. Our major banned everybody from below sergeants at Vic Falls, and so which was perfect for myself and a few other guys because all these very handsome trippies had to go and drink at the hotel next door while us
While you,
guys,
as an officer, had the
yeah,
privilege.
we had plenty of opportunities there.
I know your type. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. We had very few incidents that I can remember, but there's always somebody that overdoes it, you know. But Jenny, they were dealt with and sorted out, and they were banned from going down. So yeah.
Did you come out as a corporal from your NS or was it promotion in field?
No, from national service already. I was a
National
corporal.
service, yeah,
Yeah.
straight. Did you do the leader training wing to get your stripes? A leadership training course in Bulawayo?
No, no, I didn't do any of that. It just Um, I think we may have done some kind of training, but I remember in Llewellyn doing some stuff, or back in the drill hall days. You know, we went back to the drill hall in Harare. You had those weekends and stuff. I think we probably did something like that. But I
Mm.
had my corporal stripes from a long time, and towards the end of the war, um, after I'd hit the landmine and I was LAD, then what transpired after that, I joined support unit,
Ah,
and they got me to train guys. I was an instructor with it after I'd been to the School of Infantry to do the 106 recoilless on the 25s.
wonderful. Yes.
And so I went to the School of Infantry and we trained for that. And then so I was like an acting sergeant because I had three vehicles in charge of three vehicles as a group. And we had the 106 because the war, as you know, was starting to change and there was a lot more conventional
Yeah.
confrontations and stuff. So I went to support group together with the mortar guys. They were separate, but we had these mobile vehicles that, if necessary, we could move them with a
Yeah.
106 recoilless on the back of them. And I never saw action with that. Um, we zeroed them and fired them to get experience, but we never saw action with them. The only action I saw was with the captured 75. Was it the 70? Why the
Yeah.
one on little wheels and stuff? I think it was a 75.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we were given one of those, and we used that to initiate an ambush the one day, and that's about the only time I used those weapons in any kind of conflict or anything, or a contact of such.
They were magnificent weapons. And the Arabs in the 67 war, they used to bail out of their tanks when the Israelis fired the spotting round. And
Yeah,
they heard the 12.7 round hit it or the 14.5, and they
yeah,
were out of town
they
because
were out. So we practice a lot just with the 12.7 with the phosphorus head on it,
yeah.
just to get the feel of the weapon and everything else. But we could take the weapon off and put it back on the vehicle.
Mm.
Um, and um, and of course that vehicle could go anywhere. And because I'd worked on them and driven them and everything else, I loved that vehicle. That thing was just, you could go places with that thing. It's unbelievable. And but in fifth bat, I think we had two groups of us. I can't even remember what they called us. We were support group
Support
something,
unit,
and I
yeah.
can't remember the designation numbers or whatever. But the second lot of guys also had the three vehicles. They took out the bunker at Chirundu with the
Oh,
106
all right.
because that goes through like, is it something like 2 meters or 3 meters of reinforced concrete? I mean, that thing. And the Zambians used to um, fire at the Zimbabweans going down to the river to fish, or even the employees at Copco or Capco.
Mm.
Um, Lunchtime, they used to go down and catch themselves a fish for lunch and stuff. And the Zambians, just for, I suppose, boredom or whatever, they used to open up on them. And
Mm.
they got tired of this, so they decided that bunker that they built, that concrete bunker that they built on the Zambian side. They took it out with a 106, one round.
Lovely.
And they said nobody walked out of it.
Gee.
Nobody. And after that, the Zambians also moved their stolen organs behind the hill, so that because they knew now if you got the visual on them, they finished. So they moved their stolen organs behind the hill. And remember, they used to shoot at Kariba, and because they're behind the hill and the trajectory of those stolen organs used to miss Kariba and land in the lake, but they constantly used to fire them, but never made much impact. Yeah.
Yeah, all those supportive weapons should never be line of sight anyway, but they probably put it behind a hill that was so steep that, like you said, it landed in the water.
Yeah, but the SAS found them, and so the
Doc,
SAS went across and
yeah,
they sorted them all out. There was
yeah,
just a
they
pile of burnt metal after that.
they doctored a few on our side at Vic Falls as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Tony, yeah, so I was just quickly looking through stuff that maybe I could add to this. Some of the outreaches I did in Penalonga, no, thank you. Was wet for a whole month. No, thank you. Penalonga, no, I didn't enjoy Penalonga. Did some outreaches and base camps in Matoka at one time.
Mm.
And that's where I saw the most dead bodies that I've ever seen. They were loading them onto a Dakota.
Mm.
And I've never seen so many dead bodies in my life before.
Mm.
They'd had a huge punch up somewhere.
Mm.
And that was brings the reality of war when you see so many dead bodies.
When you say outreaches, was that in a Christian capacity?
Sorry, say again.
What was when you say an outreach? Was that?
Sorry, I say outreach. I mean a camp we did in Matoka.
Oh right, yeah, okay.
I say outreach. I'm sorry, yeah, but that triggered off for me a big change in my life.
Mm.
If I can switch now to my whole spiritual side, okay,
sure.
Because the reality of war, it was becoming more and more and more intense. We're talking about 1972, 73. I mean, it was starting to really, wind up. So by the time I got to when Pam and I got married and we had Lisa and everything else, I started, because of being a nominal Christian, I was a good Methodist. I started questioning God, my existence. What is this all about? Where's this going? And that experience with all those masses of bodies, I can't tell you how many there were. It's not important in how many there were. The fact that it was piled started making me ask God some questions of my existence. What am I here for? And also about Lisa, because Lisa was Down syndrome. I started, why would Pam and I have a daughter like that? And started asking God questions. And my answer came in the Zambezi Valley. So now you must know why I love the Zambezi Valley. I was out in patrol and walking along a pathway going wherever we're going. And I suddenly became aware I was being observed. All the hair on my arms and neck, everything stood up, and I suddenly became aware that I am being watched. Got the guys to go to ground, into the bush, because we were walking in a path, down into the bush, and I sat in the bush there trying to work out, am I going to hear some suddenly AK-47s coming my way? Are we going to be ambushed? What it is? And in those, I would say minutes, if it's minutes, or even if it was a minute, it seemed like a very short time. I suddenly became aware that I was being observed by God. It was a major spiritual experience for me. That God, who I went to church with and generally knew, and as a family, I grew up in a Christian family, but I suddenly became aware of the presence of God. And immediately what dropped into my mind was Psalm 23, verse 4. Even though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you will fear no evil, because my rod and my staff will comfort you. Changed my life completely.
Amen. Wow.
Because now the God that seemed to be up in the sky, somewhere in cloud nine somewhere, um, became real to me. Suddenly, I had that personal encounter with God Almighty,
mm,
and it changed my life completely.
mm,
And from then onwards, it's like I went home, and suddenly home had a different meaning to me.
mhm,
My wife, my child had a complete different meaning to me, because I was aware of the task of what I had as a man towards God and towards my family.
mm,
And my wife noticed the difference. She said she initially thought I had been in some major war contact, um, that she could see there was a change in me. Something changed in me.
mm,
And when she inquired about it, I told her about my experience. She said, "Well, you've got to go and give your heart to God, and you've got to be born again."
mm,
And she had had that experience 2 years before, and but I had delayed and dithered around and yeah, whatever. And it changed my life, and I went and gave my life to the Lord, and then my life just changed dramatically. I mean, it was like, come on now, it just changed. And of course, now we're getting towards the end of the war, and I've now been injured. I was now LAD. I was now, you know, um, on the 106 recoilless. I wasn't seeing action like I normally do, and all the politics and stuff going on. Um, when I said to God, "Okay, this is my life. I'll give it my life to you," and the picture was so clear in my mind. And I remember sitting down with some of the black folk that I was connected with in the church, and I said to them, so all about politics and everything else. And I said to them, "What is all this going on here? You want to
mm,
get rid of us whites, you want to get rid of
yeah,
us." My family had pioneered into the country in 1894. I mean, they built the country from bush. Now
yeah,
you just want to take it over. What happens to us? And they said, "We don't want you here because you've got a European mindset, and we want to run the country our way.
mhm,
Not the European way, we want to run it our way."
mm,
And I understood that whole political thing that we were getting locked up into, trying to create a nation that was mixed culture, but
mm,
working towards one thing.
yeah,
And in that time was the whole spiritual side of me that was then fighting
mm,
about what is real, what's not real. What's this war all about? It's not helping the nation, it's not helping us as individuals. But when they said that to me, and they said, "No, no, no, we want to run the country our way," and in reality, that's what they're doing.
mm, mm,
They're running it our way. If you see it from a European mindset, you think
mm,
banana republic, you can think whatever you
mm,
like, but they're running it their way.
mm,
And of course, you know, depending on which side of the fence you sit on politically or culturally or whatever, because I always said it's a culture thing. It's not a black and white thing. It's a
oh,
culture.
for sure, it's
Yeah.
culture. Yeah,
But it
yeah.
changed my life. It changed my life. That led me on to being led by God and responding to God, and being called into the ministry, and being ordained and running the church, as you said often. We had fun in those days, Tony, didn't we?
Yeah.
That also that it would take me on to do missionary work, and so I did that for 26 years. I mean, but that Zambezi Valley stands such a prominent thing for me,
Mm,
because it links me to the practical, to my heart's desire, bush, whatever, and then takes me into the whole spiritual connection
mm,
as well. That reminds me that God said his rod and his staff
mm.
comforts me in
Amen.
times of difficulty and everything else.
Yeah. Do you feel in the back of your mind that Pam's prayers contributed to that conversion? She must have been praying for you in the bush.
Pam interceded for me definitely for those 2 years that she was born again before I
Mm,
was,
mm,
and she had her spiritual experience.
mm,
And our discussions were based on the fact that she said we're not close anymore. We're drawn apart.
yeah,
There's a separation there, and that was that spiritual experience that connected it and just changed the dramatic. And she, of course, became like an intercessor. I mean, I would contribute my ministry, my years in the mission, and everything else that she prayed. She had a special um, gifting of praying and being an intercessor. She wasn't an upfront type of person, but
mm,
in the background she would pray, and she would fervently pray, and
mm,
she would wake up in the night and pray, and I reckon if you want to measure the success I had, I contributed to Pam. Yeah, she was
Mm.
amazing. Yeah.
The Lord is definitely the glue. Pam was a quiet but powerful person. I really liked her very much indeed. And it's by the grace of God, really, that happened to you, both of you, before the end of the war. Because you think how many couples who didn't have that
Mm.
underpinning in their lives. They had alcohol. They went to a sports club and got peed, and
Oh,
they
so
got
many broken marriages.
so many broken marriages. And all the Christians I spoke to really were underpinned by the Lord in that period.
And I think of the guys that would have done a bit of questionable stuff during the war,
Mm, mm,
that came mentally broken,
mm,
that um, that somehow they broke through because they encountered God,
yeah.
and the ones who didn't actually went on and didn't do very well or didn't survive in the sense
Mm,
they fell apart and all their families fell apart, and that was very sad.
mm,
The consequences of war, um, and conflict on our side, let alone on the other side. You think
mm,
of the rural folk that used to be bashed and beaten by the Turs, Mugabe and his lot, well, Nkoma's lot too, but then got bashed by us as well.
mm,
Got bashed and pushed around and extracting information, and they didn't know
yeah.
if they were coming or going, man.
Mm,
It was tough on them, very tough on them.
yeah, very much so. And yeah, it was a very interesting period. And then uh, tell us briefly before we end, because we've been going for 2 hours now.
Wow.
Um, Con, what did you do at the end of the war? You stayed in Zamoko.
I stayed in Samoka at the end of the war. People were starting to leave, so I started getting promotions. So I stopped working on the vehicles and I went into administration part.
Hmm.
And I became the workshop controller, controlling work in and out of the workshops, the car workshops. Well, we did trucks as well, but controlled the flow of work in and out, dishing out vehicles to people specialized and whatever. And we could quite easily do 30, 40 cars a day. It was a great job. It was you felt prestigious, you felt thing. And I think part of that, you can also contribute to Army with the discipline and how you deal with people,
Mm,
because you constantly dealing with different people in the Army. All that contributed to the ability of handling and dealing with people.
mm,
That in the later years going into ministry, I could see the reason why that I had been on this journey and I knew how to communicate and deal with people and different people and unusual people. And of course, as you know from my church background at Faith Ministries, that um, we had a mixed congregation and from all the different cultures, black, white,
mm,
yellow, green. I mean, we had everything there because we had diplomats there and everything at that time. And I think that God had taken me that route to prepare me for my mission work,
mm,
because
mm,
from there, of course, from the mission work, joining up with YWAM, um, I then went cross borders to all these different nations, and I all see that as a whole preparing journey from the army days, from my work days in Zamoka, dealing with people and everything, to take me into missions, which was probably what God wanted me to do in the first place. But it all contributed to who I am today.
So
Even though I'm retired now, but even then, it's those are wonderful journeys and experiences that I had. If you take me from army to life in itself and everything else.
yeah, you went from one army to God's army.
To another army, that's right, God's army. So it really changed my life. Even right down when you think of the army experience and what it was, the whole politics, for my injuries, my landmines, all that context, the army context you have, but the camaraderie of within the army, you take with you into the spiritual side,
Mm,
and you build up this rapport and relationship with people,
mm,
and you realize your whole background has been programmed and planned that way. That's the way I see it, and
yes,
and that's where you find me today. That's where I am.
yeah.
Um, in that all that experience. I can only just say God had his finger on me right from the beginning, and took me through these journeys, life journeys, to bring me to where I am today. Yeah.
Amen. Con, it's been a wonderful talk. I'd like to thank you very much for coming forward. I'd like to encourage everybody else who's listening to please consider coming to me or John through the channel and let us hear your story.
Yeah,
I
it's
found
great.
that really, really interesting and lovely to chat to my old mate.
And everybody's got his own story. Everybody's got his own
Absolutely.
experience.
Yeah.
All of it contributes to
Yeah.
a time in our lives that could have been different.
Absolutely.
But we went through it and we survived.
And it's unique.
And so that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tony. Yeah, great.
Thanks.
Nice talking to you, mate.
I look forward to you coming up soon, eh?
Yeah. God bless, mate. See you soon.
Take care.
Bless you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.